Good morning, my name's Elliot from Urban Farm It, and today I'm going to be showing you how to grow delicious oyster mushrooms like this at home using one of our oyster mushroom growing kits. Mushroom spawn requires very specific and controlled storage conditions, and because everybody's growing environment at home is slightly different, we've developed two kit formats. So you may either have a ready to grow kit, that being one that arrives with the mushroom spawn inside, ready to grow on arrival, or you may have a voucher system style kit. This is one that has a voucher in so that you can claim the spawn at a later date when you're ready to actually start growing. That means that we can always guarantee that you have the freshest and best spawn to use with your grow. We also have 4 varieties to choose from that come from different parts of the world and so have different temperature requirements. That means that there's always one to suit the temperature of your home. This is mushroom spawn, and it is literally just white fluffy mycelium living on a seed substrate. You'll have this in your hand either once you've redeemed your voucher, or you'll find it inside your ready to grow kit. It's very, very important that if you can't start your kit immediately, you store this correctly. So for colder species like blue, gold or white oyster, that's the salad drawer in the fridge. But for a warm weather species like the pink oyster, you need to find somewhere cool and dark at around about 10 degrees. And the maximum storage for spawn is a week. So before we get stuck in, let's take a look at some of the pieces of kit that we're going to need to complete this growing process. It's worth mentioning that every single item in the Urban Farm It mushroom growing kit is either compostable, recyclable, or required throughout the whole process. So please don't throw anything away until you've completed your growing journey. So first things first, we've got our substrate bag. This is a heat resistant specialist bag, and inside there is our chopped straw substrate, which is effectively the food for our mushrooms. We've then got our mushroom grain spawn. We've got a white liner, and when paired with the box will form the lovely humid growing environment for our mushrooms to thrive. We also have a detailed instruction booklet which has QR code links to tutorial videos, loads of images and step-by-step instructions. What you're going to need in addition to the items that are found within the kit is a kettle for pasteurising our substrate, a sharp knife, either some tape or clothes pegs, and finally a spray bottle for misting the mushrooms. It's important that this isn't contaminated with any other cleaning products, bleach, etc., as that will inhibit your grow. The first stage of the process is pasteurisation. Our aim here is to remove competing bacteria and mushroom spores from the substrate and giving our mushroom spawn the best chance of survival and success. To do this, we're going to place the black substrate bag in a sink or other watertight basin and then carefully add 3 litres of boiling water. We're then going to roll the top of the bag shut and either seal it with some tape or pegs and then allow it to cool naturally over the course of 8 hours. Once thoroughly cooled back to room temperature, we now need to drain all of the excess water within the substrate. To do this, we're going to cut off the bottom corners of the bag and allow it to drain naturally. Once it's drained, we're also then going to give the substrate bag a good squeeze to remove even more liquid. It's important to make sure that the bag is thoroughly drained, as waterlogged substrate will inhibit the growth of your mycelium and negatively impact your grow. So the next step will be the mixing phase, but before we get into that, and because we've gone to all of the effort of ensuring that we've got lovely clean pasteurised straw and well-maintained spawn, it's really important that we now go and thoroughly wash our hands and forearms with soapy water. We are the main vector by which contamination is going to enter our grow at the later stages, so personal hygiene is a very, very important step. Cool, so now we're all ready and set to begin the mixing phase. And the first step is just to take the mushroom spawn and just crumble it up in the bag. You'll often find if it's quite mature that it could almost be a bit like a bar of soap, which is no problem. It just needs to be broken up so that when we add it to our straw, we have as many inoculation points as possible. Crumble this up inside the bag so that we don't introduce any other contaminants during that process. And what we're going to do is, as quickly as possible, open the spawn bag and then add it into our substrate bag. I touched on it there, but an even distribution of spawn is a very important step in ensuring quick growth, because the more well distributed the spawn is, the faster it will then knit together and be ready to fruit. So I'm going to go in and give it a really good mix and just make sure that there is spawn all the way from the top to the bottom, evenly distributed. That's great. So the last part of the mixing process is to prepare the bag for the next stage, incubation. So we're just going to grab the bag and shake it so that all of the substrate falls down to the bottom. And then very lightly compress it. This will allow the mycelium to knit together much more easily. Once we've done that, we're going to roll the air out of the bag nice and tight, and then tape it shut in position. So what we've ended up with is a nicely tightly packed blend of substrate and spawn that's ready to be incubated. And as a final step, we're just going to take our sharp knife and cut 5 X-shaped cuts in one face of the bag. They should be evenly distributed and about 3 centimeters across in total. Following mixing is the incubation stage, and incubation is the most crucial stage to success, and it's very important that we get this right. So during incubation, the mycelium will be spreading throughout the substrate material and digesting the straw and harnessing all of those nutrients, getting itself ready to produce the mushrooms that we then wish to harvest. But how do we do it? Well, first things first, we're going to take our substrate block and put it inside of a waterproof liner. Just a loose fit is fine, and then place it inside of the box. We then want to just push the lid over without actually taping it shut. So what we've created here now is a warm, consistent and dark environment for the mycelium to develop, but there's also still access to oxygen. And what we're now going to do is go and choose a suitable location in the house. For all of the varieties, that's somewhere that's dark and warm between 20 and 25 degrees, and we're going to leave it there for a few weeks to let the mycelium develop. One thing that we definitely do not want to do is place this in somewhere like a greenhouse or alongside a heat source, such as a heat mat or a radiator, where the fluctuation in temperature will stress out the mycelium and negatively impact our grow. Equally, we don't want to be placing this anywhere that might reach over 30 degrees, as that will kill off the mycelium from the start. So it's been a few weeks with our kit in incubation, and I'm now going to check to make sure that the mycelium is fully developed before I move on to the fruiting stage. It's so important that you check that it is fully developed, because the more well developed the mycelium, the better the harvest that you're going to get. It's important to note that the incubation phase could take anything from 2 to 5 weeks, depending on your environmental conditions, so don't worry if it's a little bit slower. It may just be that the temperatures are a little bit cooler. To carry out the inspection, we're going to have a look inside the kit and just peer into the cuts that we made in the bag. What you do want to see is nice, thick, cotton wool-like mycelial development in all of the cuts of the bag. The thicker the better, really. And what you don't want to see or smell is a foul smell and an abundance of green mold. If you have either of those two symptoms, then it's a sign that you've had a contamination event, and the thing to do is to get in touch with a member of the team. If you are unsure what you're looking for, then take a look in the detailed guide that came with the kit, where there are pictures of each stage of the mycelial development. So once we're confident that our kit is fully incubated and the mycelium is nice and mature, then we're going to move on to the fruiting stage. And to do that, we're going to adjust the orientation of the kit a little bit and select a new place to carry on the process. What we're looking to try and do is to change the environment in which the mycelium is, and to trigger it to produce the mushrooms for us to then harvest. And so what we're looking for is an increase in light, an increase in the amount of fresh air available, and a change of temperature, and that should give the kit the trigger that it needs to get going. So to get your kit set up ready for fruiting, we're just going to lift up the flaps at the side and then pull the white liner over the same way as you would with a pedal bin. That allows oxygen and light to enter towards the kit, and we're then going to stand it up on end to one side of the box. And what we've created here is a semi-controlled environment that we can now move into the correct place in the house. Cool, so here we are. I've chosen my position for fruiting, and what you're looking for is some nice ambient light, but not direct sunlight, so somewhere like a windowsill wouldn't be appropriate, for example. You need lots of fresh air, so not in a stuffy cupboard. I've chosen just on the kitchen work surface here. And the final thing that you need is to get the correct temperature for your chosen species. So if it was something like a pink oyster mushroom, then it likes it very warm, so you'd be looking to get temperatures in the mid to upper 20s. But if it was something like a grey oyster mushroom, it prefers cooler temperatures, so you're looking to get something in the mid to late teens. Whilst all of these kits will grow in regular household conditions, if you're able to provide perfect conditions, it will speed up the pace at which you get your harvest, but also the amount you can harvest. Now that we're into the fruiting phase, we need to provide the last piece of the puzzle, humidity. And in comes our trusty spray bottle. To begin with, we're going to spray twice daily and generously all throughout the inside of the kit, on the black substrate bag, on the white liner, and that will provide that lovely ambient humidity that will trigger our mushrooms to grow. As we had discovered earlier, waterlogging is not a good thing and will inhibit your mycelium growth. So generally, we want to try and avoid spraying up close and right into the cuts of the bag. However, if you are in a situation where the straw and mycelium has dried out, you can give it a couple of squirts in the cut just to get it going again. It's an important consideration that when you start to see the mushrooms begin to grow, you try not to spray the caps directly and instead target your spraying on the white liner. Depending on environmental conditions, in anything from 1 to 3 weeks, you should be ready to harvest. Choosing when to harvest your mushrooms is a bit of a judgment call that comes with experience. If you leave them for too long, then the caps will dry out and lose quality condition. If you do them too soon, then you're missing out on vital growth and harvestable mass. So what you're looking for is a movement of the caps from a concave shape through to flat. Each of the caps will begin to unfurl and then drop their spores. The perfect time to catch them is just before they drop their spores, so if you see a fine dust inside the kit, that's a sure sign to get them harvested. But how do you do it? Well, the best way to do it is to grab the whole clump and twist it one full turn. You then want to go around and pull out any of the extra aborted pins, as these may go mouldy and introduce contamination later on. As a side-by-side comparison, here we have some perfectly formed grey oyster mushrooms. The caps are flat, but they still have that lovely oyster mushroom shape and they haven't dried out. But then as a direct comparison, we have some that were left for far too long and are now over mature with the caps fully unfilled, and these would have lost condition and wouldn't be as good for eating. Each kit is capable of producing several flushes, so after harvesting we want to return the kit back into the fruiting conditions and continue to spray twice daily. Then after just a few more weeks you should expect your second, third or maybe even fourth flush. And that's it, you're now fully fledged urban mushroom growers. I hope you've enjoyed the process. If you have any questions or issues at all, please do get in touch with the team. We're here to help. And like and subscribe for more urban farming videos.